Welcome in to Locked On Knicks. Alex Wolfe and Gavin Schall here, and it's FIBA time. We've been teasing this for at least a week that we might be talking about some FIBA stuff, and here we are. The tournament is officially underway. We're past the preliminaries. We're into the group play, and some Knicks are doing really well. That includes Jalen Brunson. So we're going to talk about what this means for Jalen, how it shows how he plays with the best of the best as far as talent goes in the NBA. And also, we're going to do a little draft of the guys that are on his team currently that we want to see him try to recruit to the Knicks, because why not? So that's all coming up right now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On to get started. And I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and the auto download function on your favorite podcast app or the notification bell on YouTube so you never miss an episode. You can become an everydayer. And if you want to take your parasocial relationship with us one step further, you can check us out on Subtext and text directly with us from your phone. So check out the episode description for instructions on how to do that. I'm Alex Wolfe. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site, The Strickland, which you can find strict.land, and he is Gavin Schall, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster. And we're talking today about Jalen Brunson on the international stage, leading Team USA as their point guard. And Gavin, he's obviously playing with I won't say the most star-studded cast in Team USA history. I would actually say that on the surface, if you just kind of eyeball this team versus the team that got embarrassed a few years ago in the FIBAs, you might almost say that they are slightly lower, maybe, like at least in like pure talent that's taking the floor. But either way, he's leading a Team USA roster that is playing really well, and looks like probably by the time most people are listening to this episode, we'll probably have moved on to the next round, into the elimination rounds of World Cup play if they manage to go 2-0 in their first two games. But that's still, as of right this second when we're recording, to be determined. But Jalen Brunson's been playing pretty good so far.
Yeah, there were a couple of things that stood out to me. The main game I was looking at was the Spain game, where, of course, he shot 9 for 9. I believe he finished with 22 points in that one. It was one of two games where he scored the first bucket for Team USA, which I think goes to what Steve Kerr was saying before all this even started, that he's kind of the unofficial leader of this team. And despite some talk from the likes of Bill Simmons that they might be better when he's off the floor, he does some really important stuff for them. And in terms of ability to just go get 2 points, second maybe only to Anthony Edwards on this team. So Austin Reeves has also been fantastic in that capacity. But yeah, he's been great for them. And a few things have stood out to me watching Brunson so far. One is just the shape that he's in, Alex. I remember that. I'm sure you saw it too. That picture came out earlier this summer where he just looked absolutely yoked out of his mind, and that's kind of translated into international play, I should say, where he's getting a lot of just really tiny guards on him, and at times, like, he just goes through them. Like one of the first possessions against Spain, he didn't even really do a move, just kind of straight up bully Euro step into a layup, and I kind of had to blink and double check the title of the YouTube video and make sure I wasn't watching RJ Barrett, because that's kind of what it looked like. It's also been fun to just watch him get to shoot spot up threes in transition. I'm kind of hoping, and I've said as much this year, maybe getting a little bit more run, either in bench lineups or against opposing starting units with both Josh Hart and Dante DiVincenzo, because the chemistry he has with those guys, because of the pace that those guys play at, because of the defensive playmaking that they bring to the floor. He's going to get a few more chances in transition and a few more open threes. Maybe that's even playing more with Emmanuel Quickley, and Emmanuel Quickley being a little bit more comfortable creating and drawing help and getting Brunson shots. But you can see how deadly it is. Like there was one play where Austin Reeves drew help. Brunson got down the perimeter, little pump fake, one dribble, sidestep three. And it just kind of struck me. Wow, he didn't really get many opportunities last year where he already had an advantage. It was the occasional catch and shoot three here and there, but he doesn't even need that much. You just give him an extra step and he's going to do a really nice job taking advantage of it. The other things that stood out to me was just I just miss watching the guy, Alex. It's been a few months now. I'm getting the itch back for basketball, but just some of the crazy shot making. Like he had one where he's running across the lane 10 feet away, hit it going off of 1 foot. He had another one against New Zealand where he, again, small guard on him, and he just took that as a personal insult, pulled out the throwback 90s big man game, and just had this tight little spin move drop step into a layup. And it just kind of defies physics, like how it's almost corkscrew-esque, how tight he's able to go on those spins. Basically the summary of all that is I really miss watching Jalen Brunson. But the thing that got my gears turning more than anything else is how would he look if he got to play off of superstar talent more frequently than he currently does? We obviously hear the rumors about Joel Embiid. We hear the rumors about Donovan Mitchell coming back. If there ever was a big three scenario, like on paper, you sometimes question the fit because of who he is as a defender, but you also just see how easily he gets to score the basketball when the whole defense isn't focused on him.
Yeah, I also have noticed too, just from watching some of this team, and maybe this is just like I feel the same way about RJ Barrett too, which we'll talk about him tomorrow when we or perhaps Wednesday when we get into the episode that we're recording about him. But it's just like they run so much more too, which I think is really beneficial. And Brunson definitely loves playing that style, and so does Josh Hart. Which Hart just kind of let his nature shine through with the Knicks and just did that by default, and didn't really give them much of a choice. Whereas Brunson, more often on the Knicks, I think kind of tried to conform with what the team was looking to do, which was set up in a half court offense more often, not be getting out in transition as much. But it's very cool seeing him on a team with a bunch of guys that just want to run. Mostly younger stars that are on this team, at least the big name guys. And I think that's part of it. That's part of what's good about, seeing him play with these guys. I mean, he does play with Randall, who, no matter what you feel about the guy, is like a star at the NBA level too, but maybe not quite to the level of like an Anthony Edwards, and definitely not as clean of a superstar as far as being able to like just kind of get the ball and go get a basket kind of thing under like any circumstance. But I will say, I think that it's been a little different seeing him play in this scenario versus playing with, say, Luka Doncic, which probably has more to do with the fact that he's just a different player than he was, 2 years ago when he was playing for the Mavs. Based off this 1 year with the Knicks, he really got to kind of spread his wings and feel what it was like to be the primary guy on a team. But I've noticed that he seems to be like he's running the show more and is being trusted to play that role more. And that's leading to like not necessarily the highest scoring totals for him so far in international play, but I feel like there's kind of no question that like he is one of the leaders on the floor no matter what. And that has really shown through to me in watching him in international play, is that there's no question of like this guy's like one of the I'll put Edwards right there with him, but it's like those two are like the top two talents on this team that are rightfully getting the most attention as like the guys that are the engines of this team. And in that respect, that does give me hope for if he eventually ends up playing with, like, if Donovan Mitchell ended up with the Knicks, or Joel Embiid, who are both extremely high usage players. That gives me hope for, like, even if Brunson ends up back in the role of not being the number one guy on the team anymore and not being number one, person on offense, these guys are, high level players are now recognizing like this is still probably the guy that should be bringing the ball down the floor for us every time, and he'll get everybody set up. Or if he needs to set himself up, he could do that too. But like, we should trust him to do whatever it is that he's going to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was something I talked about earlier this summer when, and maybe we should revisit this topic, but when the Joel Embiid rumors were at their pinnacle, it's the fact that getting Joel Embiid, I think more than anything else, it's a bet on Jalen Brunson, right? Because inevitably you're giving up so much of your team, you're giving so much of your future flexibility up to Embiid, and you're hoping and praying that the years of playoff failures in Philly were either a mirage or just a product of being hurt, and you just get the perfect run out of him. I kind of look at it a different way. I kind of accept that's who Joel Embiid is, and he's going to be a monster for you in the regular season. And if nothing else, he's going to be somewhat inconsistent for you in the playoffs. Jalen Brunson is your finisher on a championship team, but he still needs someone who's just a dominant defender, incredible finisher, and can be that really high level secondary scorer to do that. And who better than a guy who led the NBA in scoring the last 2 years in Joel Embiid? I think a lot of the same stuff applies with Donovan Mitchell. We know he's not going to shrink from that spotlight. He's not going to shrink from that moment, as capable from just a skill set perspective of getting it done at the biggest parts of games as just about anyone in the NBA. Going to be something to watch in terms of how the Knicks construct the roster going forward, because I think they have that same type of confidence. In terms of the defensive end, he struggled a little bit in this setting. He's always going to struggle a bit in the NBA. That's where him and Mitchell is a little bit more iffy, but Alex, it's probably a conversation for another day. How about we come back and maybe draft some guys that could join Brunson on the future? Team USA, always famous for its recruitment.
Yeah, it's where the Heatles were born, and where plenty of other super teams have kind of found their footing is guys playing with each other for their country. Good old America. So we'll draft all the rest of the Team America guys in just a moment. But I do have to remind you all that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. And if you want to get ready for the NFL season, you can with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. I don't know where you're going to find a better return on investment than that. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. How can this deal keep getting better? Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can be on everything from spreads to player props and more, and perhaps even a same-game parlay if you want to have a really interesting and fun time to go along with your fantasy football on a Sunday afternoon. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, Gavin, we're back in, and we alluded to this. The Team USA experience is notorious for creating super teams, and it's a pretty starry roster that Jalen Brunson is playing with. Also, a very interesting roster. It's definitely not the dream team. It's not the redeem team. There's some very high level talent on this team, but also some pretty decent role players. There's 10 of them in total. And so we may as well just start at the top. We're going to do this draft style. We're going to go back and forth. And since I brought us back into the segment here, I will be gracious and throw it to you first for pick number 1. Who do you most want to see Jalen Brunson recruit off this Team USA?
That makes me really happy, Alex, because I think there is a clear-cut number 1 guy, and I love being original. Everyone knows that, but I'm not going to be here because it's the same clear-cut number 1 guy that everyone else has from FIBA. It is, you've already copied and moved it in the doc, so I think you're reading my mind here. It's Anthony Edwards, who both from a personality perspective and from an on-the-court perspective has been the dominant figure here. I mean, I remember the first time I watched him play at Georgia. Well, actually, the first time I watched him play was in high school. And the 2 times I saw him broadcast one of the games, just watched him another one. He had combined like 12 points. And I was thinking, all right, I don't really get what the hype's about. And then I saw him at Georgia and I was thinking, oh, when this guy looks good, he kind of just looks like Michael Jordan. And that's sort of what he's looked like the last few games. I know that's a lofty name to throw out there, best player of all time, but he is exceptional. And it feels like as someone who never lacked confidence, that is increasingly getting warranted. He was a very inefficient mid-range scorer early in his career, and those percentages have gone up about 3-4% from his first to second season, and then again from his second to third season. I think another jump in that category, and you have a guy who's just completely unstoppable on the offensive end of the floor. And I think about my dream next to Jalen Brunson. I want another alpha. I want a guy who is a lockdown defender, which I think when Edwards is locked in, he, at least on the ball, he absolutely is. I want another guy who can shoot. And just a cumulative swagger, I think, would be borderline unfair. And I could see the Knicks winning a title. Like if you just put Anthony Edwards in place of Quentin Grimes. I know that's a big jump right now. I think the Knicks are pretty much as good as any team in the NBA.
Yeah, I fully agree with you on Edwards. I think he's far and away. I mean, you just look at the mix of present day talent and the youth that he has on his side. And I think it's obvious. I mean, he's a guy that's going to just continue getting better for at least the next 4 or 5 years. And he should absolutely be the guy that, should be most sought after. If you're starting to sort of plant the seeds for a super team in another couple years, he's the guy. This is where it gets a little more hairy, right? I think this is a tough call. I'm going to use the realist in my brain and consider contract situations here too when I'm looking at this. So like my brain wants to say sorry, I should say my heart wants to say Paolo Banchero. I think that he's the guy that I would most look at next, because you talk about the combination of youth and present day talent. He's really, really good right now, and he's only going into his second year in the NBA. But that makes it all the less likely that he would potentially be on the market for another, like, man, even in Orlando, like he's probably not going to, be able to sort of leverage his way out of there for at least another like 4 to 5 years once he's like on his rookie scale extension. So I'm going to turn my attention. Maybe this is a hot take. I'm going to turn my attention. No, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to go Jaren Jackson Jr.
That's who I was going to pick. So yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I just think so. He's not the starriest guy left here in terms of just being like a traditional, bucket getter kind of guy, like guy that can get you 25 points a game or whatever. But all apologies to Mitchell Robinson. I think that if you could, we'll talk about this in our RJ Barrett show as well. But like, there's talk of, if the paint opens up, what could happen for RJ Barrett and for other guys on the Knicks. And he's a guy that gives you that option because he's a legitimate 3-point threat while still giving you everything that Mitchell Robinson can on defense. Not as good of a rebounder, which is something you'd have to figure out. But the Knicks are a good rebounding team other than just Mitchell Robinson. So like, assuming you still had Julius Randle and Josh Hart and Brunson even on the team, RJ Barrett. Yeah, DiVincenzo, like they're good rebounding top to bottom. So if you can make up for the fact that Jaren Jackson is not the best rebounder, perhaps it would give you a whole new look on both offense and maintain what you already have, which is a very solid foundation on defense. So I think he's the guy that I would most put there. Plus, there's a Knicks connection there too. I believe that Jaren Jackson Sr. is still coaching or a coach on the Westchester Knicks, if I'm not mistaken. So,
yeah, I think this is like not even that close to me. I think he pretty clear cut of anyone on this list has the second biggest impact. I mean, imagine getting an even better version of Mitchell Robinson's defense with a guy who is capable of having a season where he shoots 38% from three on volume, is also athletic, can score out of the post, is switchable, is by far, I mean, Walker Kessler on this team is going to have a case over the next few years, but right now is the clear-cut rim protecting king of the entire NBA. I just think this would like change Julius Randle's life. It would obviously, to your point on the quote, which we'll get to, will change RJ Barrett's life. And Jalen Brunson, I just said it, as efficient as he is now, I think you would see him like in borderline Steph Curry territory of true shooting percentage, just him getting to go one-on-one almost every possession. I think it's such an underrated factor in Ja Morant's success that he gets to play a substantial amount of minutes with Triple J at center. Of course, he's still really good when Steven Adams is at center. That point aside, though, I think it would completely change the team. So I'm a little jealous. That's the direction I would have gone. I think probably Tyrese Halliburton is the next best player here, but also not someone that makes the most sense next to Jalen Brunson. We've seen him not have a lot of success, or that's stating it incorrectly. Not having as much success as he could back when he played with De'Aaron Fox. Obviously, Jalen can play off the ball a little bit more. I think that would work really well, but not quite what you want. I might have previously coming into this tournament said Brandon Ingram, and this might be a slight overreaction to just a couple of games, but Ingram hasn't really looked like a natural fit playing with so much star talent around him. And it's kind of an open question in New Orleans how him and Zion fit together, because they've only played about a season's worth of games together so far. Last year, I think only played something like 12 games together at most. So I agree with you on Paolo, like that. Everyone signs their 5-year extension. So that's not happening anytime soon. Another guy where it might not happen anytime soon, but it could happen at some point. Mikal Bridges. You read my mind again, Alex. Great job. Villanova teammate, incredible defender, incredible shooter, unselfish, fits culturally just about perfectly. His shooting doesn't have the same amplifying effect that Triple J's does, because it's at the forward spot and at the center spot. And that's ultimately the difference between the two, but still a picture perfect fit for the Knicks.
Yeah, I'm there with you. I would have also gone Bridges next, I think, as appealing as Ingram potentially could be, as just a very talented scorer and whatever. I think that I would just be looking for, most of these guys, what's good is that they're kind of showing that they can also like play against or play with this like star level talent, I should say, and mesh well with them. And Bridges is sort of the guy like that to me, where he can be a defensive player of the year candidate and yet also can be the guy that we saw with the Nets, where I don't think that's necessarily who he is, that he is like a like massive volume scorer that like just took his leap. I think he just had like a really good half season with a team that empowered him to be the alpha and the omega after they made some really ground shaking trades. That said, he's a guy that can go off and have those big scoring performances for you if you need him to, and yet also is really good at playing off of other players, playing an unselfish brand of basketball. Does that sound familiar at all? It should, because that's exactly how you could describe Jalen Brunson as well. It's how you could describe Emmanuel quickly. It's a very Knicks type of player that, you know, has multiple ways that they can bring you a win. And it doesn't necessarily just have to be putting the ball in the hoop. So I'm totally there with you. Pretty tough decision on this next pick coming up. So why don't we take our final little break here, come back in, and then we'll get through the rest of the tough part and then breeze through the role players to end this little game here. All right, we're back in, continuing to you know, big market bias our way through this. You know, draft all these guys to from their little small market teams to the Knicks and say who Jalen Brunson should you know, lure away with all of his big market evil power on Team USA here. So let's see. You know, this might come across as hating. I know that we were just talking about both of them. I think I'm kind of going Brandon Ingram over Tyrese Halliburton. It's all about fit for me. I don't see it. You know, I don't know. I feel like Halliburton, I wouldn't want to take the ball out of Brunson's hands to put it in Halliburton's and then have Brunson have to play off of him. And yet I also don't know that I would want to have Halliburton playing off of Brunson. Whereas Ingram, I just could see potentially being a more natural fit as like a wing. You know, there's not going to be any overlap there. He is really good at just going out there and getting you a bucket if he needs to. To your point in the last segment, Gavin, maybe there's some concerns about how he would play on like a truly stacked, like championship level kind of roster, which hopefully the Knicks will have at some point in the near future, you know, next couple years, whatever. But I still just think, based off fit and everything, I would go with Ingram over any of the rest of the guys on the list, other than, of course, I mean, we're going to keep fading him, but eventually we'll rank Paolo somewhere on this list, but he's just not realistic at this moment because of how young he is.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and do it now. I'm just going to go Paolo Banchero because, I mean, at a certain point, like, are any of these guys, like, obviously the Timberwolves aren't willingly trading Anthony Edwards. The Nets aren't trading Mikal Bridges anytime soon. So I'll say screw realism at this point. Just too big of a talent, I guess, still on the board. He would kind of be your Julius Randle replacement with, like, honestly, like, obviously, like, the pedigree is higher for Paolo, and I think he's ultimately going to be a way better player, but there's a lot of just Julius with his head fully screwed on straight there, and that's going to come up badly. Like, Julius, again, off the court, great dude. On the court last year, 85% of the time, great dude. But, like, I don't think you're going to ever have any questions about his effort. He's probably as athletic as Julius is and was last year. Paolo's probably even at another level, but he kind of dominates the same way just by being physically huge. And we've seen it a lot for Team USA, where Steve Kerr is playing him substantial minutes at the 5. And I'm not sure how that translates to the NBA or not, but I think it's a really fun look. And the Team USA's blitz teams in those minutes with Paolo playing center. There's some hope for the shot becoming pretty good down the road right now. There's some real touch questions there, but just a spectacular talent for a rookie, already a really good passer, already a great finisher, really intuitive sense to the game. I just think he's going to be a great player for a long time.
Yep, I'm with you already. I mean, like I said, I would have arguably taken him number 2 overall if it seemed more attainable in these rankings. So yeah, I'm with you there. I think Paolo is really talented. I think that he would just kind of be that guy that if you wanted to do a soft reset and try to keep things going, you know, and build for the future more, and you could somehow pry him away from Orlando, then you basically just move him for Julius Randle, you know, or find some way to make that trade happen some way or another. And that's the way you do it. And, you know, you extend your competition window for longer that way. It's now come back to me, and I have to take Tyler Halliburton at this point. He's just the most talented guy still left. by a wide margin. This is where we start. Once you get past Halliburton, you go from potential all-star dudes to like role players, which is fine. Because I think that every good Team USA should have some guys that are more just role players. But Halliburton, I mean, he's really good. He's just not the best fit with Brunson, and that's the whole point here, is that Brunson is trying to recruit these guys to be his teammate. If you were going to outright replace Brunson for some reason, then Halliburton would probably be much higher up this list. But really, really good player. Just I don't necessarily love the fit of him with Brunson, which is why he gets this far. And there's just some animus there because the whole debate all off season has been who's better, Halliburton or Brunson. And obviously, through our Knicks colored glasses, we say Brunson. And so, it's just wouldn't feel right to put him high on the list.
Yeah, we got to bring our guy Tony East on at some point before the season starts to really hash it out, get some of that animus out there. But yeah, I'm with you. I think the one thing that Brunson would bring that the Knicks, not Brunson, Halliburton would bring that the Knicks really don't have is just incredibly quick decision making. And Halliburton, obviously LeBron and Luka when he wants to, are similar in that, and Jokic, obviously, they're all geniuses. But Halliburton, it might just be him and Jokic in a category of their own in terms of his ability to just read the floor in about a millisecond and make the right pass. And I love that Quentin Grimes brings a bit of that for the Knicks. Quickly and Hart bring that at times for the Knicks. Brunson, RJ, and Randall, when they want to, can do that for the Knicks, but don't often do it. And I think if there's one thing that could make the Knicks offense a little bit better in the playoffs beyond just shooting, obviously, it's snappier decision-making, and Halliburton would give you that. All right, next pick for me is pretty obvious. Obviously, Cam Johnson, in some ways, is maybe in a lot of ways, is the cleanest fit of anyone left, but I'm going Austin Reeves. I'll push back on the last All-Star being taken. I think Austin Reeves, maybe it's kind of a Fred VanVleet, D'Angelo Russell type of All-Star berth, but honestly, I think he's probably a better player than either of those two guys. He really showed me something during the playoff run this year. At times for Team USA, he's looked like their third or fourth best player, which I can't really say. We obviously just for a reason listed 6-7 guys above him, and it's a small sample size, but you ask anyone who's playing better, Brandon Ingram or Austin Reeves, it's Austin Reeves. And there's something to be said for someone who is a absolute killer of a scorer on all three levels, but also can just fit in anywhere and picks his spots so well. And for some guys, that's really intuitive. For some guys, that's not intuitive. And I think Reeves being a role player early in college, a role player early on the Lakers, it makes him a pretty clean fit on the Knicks. Obviously, you'd have to put him in there over Quickly or Grimes, which would be painful to do, but I think he would fit right into everything the Knicks do.
Yeah, he also presumably could be a guy that ends up becoming available faster than not because he's not on a super long contract. And even if he is still on his contract with the Lakers, you feel like it's got to be an inevitability that in the next 2-3 years, LeBron might look at retirement.
Yeah.
And so whenever that happens,
him for Quickly trade down the road, maybe.
Man, I don't know. I don't know if I'm quite there yet where I think that I would take him over Quickly.
I wouldn't if you didn't have Jalen Brunson, but in a world where you have Jalen Brunson,
I'm a huge believer in Quickly and Brunson working together though. And I think that's my biggest thing.
I believe in it. I don't think the Knicks believe in it, but
yeah, that's a problem. Which is the problem, right? So if you're asking my opinion, I don't know that I would do, but maybe the Knicks would at some point. Yeah, I guess we'll have to see how that goes. But I mean, he would be a seamless fit. And look, at least he's young as well. Maybe not quite as young as Quickly. He's 25 already, because he's a little older coming into the league. So that makes me worry about his cap, as far as what his ceiling is going to end up being. But I mean, he certainly looks really good so far with Team USA. I definitely would have no issues bringing him on. Next, I would go Cam Johnson. This feels pretty clear based off the three players that are left. It's Cam Johnson, Walker Kessler, and Bobby Portis. Cam Johnson's just that type of dude that you want on pretty much every NBA team. He can shoot the three and he can play some defense, and that's it. And that's fine. And he gets paid handsomely to do it. And, for a team like the Knicks that seems to always be starved of 3-point shooting, be a very good addition no matter what.
Yeah, I don't think this is the case, but I'd be interested to see a world where you replace Julius Randle with, and I think we said something like this on a past podcast, but Julius Randle with Cam Johnson for a full year. And would the Knicks be a better team? Even though, again, in a vacuum, I would not argue that Julius Randle isn't a substantially better player than Cam Johnson, but shooting has a real amplifying effect. All right, Walker Kessler is my final pick. I just think he's younger, probably healthier. Mitchell Robinson, and an even better rim protector, not nearly as good of a rebounder, but ultimately like better offensive player too, like better hands, smooth finisher around the rim. I'm a huge fan of Walker Kessler's game. Like, I mean, I think it's a stretch to say they replaced Gobert with Gobert, because I know he got a whole lot of crap, including on this podcast at times, but prime Gobert was like just, I think maybe a top 10, 12 defender in NBA history, but Kessler could be 90% of that, which is saying a lot. So I'm a big Walker Kessler fan.
Yeah, much to the chagrin of our boss who loves Walker Kessler. I think I'm there with you. I mean, he would obviously be my pick over Bobby Portis, which, no offense to Bobby Portis, once a Knick, always a Knick. Definitely the last. I don't think there's any way that you could have him higher on this list, unfortunately, just thanks to youth and usefulness and everything else, and how much he has left in his career and everything else. But Bobby Portis comes in at the last pick. There's no world where I would put him over Walker Kessler, because, like you said, Kessler showed so much as like a rim protector this first year. And that's something that you tend to only get better at. I will say this much, like the raw block numbers, I think will go down over time for him, because that also just tends to happen. We've seen that happen with Mitchell Robinson, although he didn't have the foul troubles. Like, he only averaged, I just looked up his stats because I was curious. He only averaged, in 23 minutes, he only averaged a little over 2 fouls per game this year. So if you stretch that out to 36 minutes, he's only averaging maybe 3 fouls a game. And he was averaging 2.3 blocks, which is crazy in 20 minutes. So, I'm a believer in him too. I don't know if I would necessarily say that I think I would feel comfortable like slotting him in for Mitch yet, but ask me in like 2-3 years time, and that answer might change. He needs to definitely bulk up and work on his rebounding and stuff, but he could be right there with the Mitchell Robinsons of the world in just a couple years. But Gavin, I think this is a good note to end on. Yeah. We've reached the end of this show. We will have perhaps some individual game recaps coming this week. Also a show where we do a similar thing with RJ Barrett, talk about his FIBA performance so far, what we've seen, what we like, talk about his comments where he said it's kind of, I don't know, people are reading it like it's shade at the Knicks, saying that the paint's wide open for Canada, and that's why he's playing so well. So we'll talk through that and what international play is meant for RJ Barrett. But until next time, thank you all for listening to this episode of Locked On Knicks, and we will talk to y'all soon. Peace out, everybody.